Welcome, my friends. I'm so glad you're here with me today. I want to share a message that I believe can give you hope, strength, and peace, no matter what season of life you're in. It's a message that has carried millions of believers through joy and sorrow, through victories and struggles. It comes from one of the most powerful verses in the Bible, Romans chapter 8, verse 28. The verse says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." Think about those words for a moment. We know, not we hope, not we guess, but we know. There is confidence here. There is assurance. And it's not just for the good moments, but for all things. The heartbreaks, the losses, the disappointments, the failures. God is still working. Maybe you've had moments in life where you looked around and thought, "Why is this happening to me? Where is God in all this mess?" I've been there too, but later, when you look back, you realize God was weaving something bigger than what you could see. The closed door wasn't rejection, it was protection. The broken heart wasn't the end, it was the beginning of something new. This is what Romans 8:28 is reminding us. That God takes every piece of our story, even the ones that don't make sense, and he works them together for good. Now, the man who wrote this verse was the Apostle Paul. And Paul didn't write these words from a place of comfort. He wrote them after surviving prison, shipwrecks, beatings, and rejection. He knew what it meant to suffer. And he was writing to Christians in Rome who were also facing danger and persecution. Imagine living with fear every day, not knowing if tomorrow might cost you your life because of your faith. And yet Paul says, "We know that in all things God works for the good." That means if the promise was true for them in their pain, it's true for you and yours. Let's slow down and break this verse apart so we can fully grasp its power. It begins with, "And we know." Notice that certainty. Paul isn't guessing. He's not offering wishful thinking. He's speaking from experience. He's saying, this is something we can stand on. And that's important, because in life, so many things feel uncertain. We don't always know what tomorrow will bring. But we can know this: God is working. Then Paul says that in all things, not some things, not just the good moments, but in all things, in the victories and in the valleys, in the moments of laughter and in the moments of tears, God doesn't waste anything. Think about Joseph in the Old Testament, betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, thrown into prison. But at the end of his story, he could look at those same brothers and say, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." That's all things. And then Paul says, God works. Notice who does the work. Not luck, not coincidence, not fate, but God himself. Even when we don't see it, he is working behind the scenes. He is arranging, guiding, and shaping things according to his perfect plan. Sometimes it feels like life is just chaos, like all we see are the messy threads on the back of a tapestry. But God sees the other side, the beautiful picture he is creating. While we see the mess, he sees the masterpiece. Next, Paul says, for the good. Now, this is important. He's not saying all things are good. Let's be honest. Some things in life are heartbreaking. Some things are unfair. But Paul is saying that God takes even the painful things and somehow uses them for good. Think about baking. If you eat flour by itself, or a raw egg, or a spoonful of salt, it doesn't taste good. But when all those ingredients are mixed together, when they're put in the heat, they produce something beautiful and good. That's how God works with our lives. The individual moments might not feel good, but when he mixes them together, the result is for our good. And who is this promise for? Paul says, for those who love him. This is not a blanket promise for everyone. It's for those who love God, who belong to him, who have chosen to trust him with their lives. If you love him even imperfectly, even when you stumble, this promise is for you. Finally, Paul says, who have been called according to his purpose. That means your life is not random. You are not here by accident. You were created on purpose, for a purpose. God's plan is bigger than your comfort. His plan is to shape you into the image of Christ and to use your life for His glory. Sometimes life feels like a puzzle. You pick up one piece and it doesn't make sense on its own. But when you step back and see the bigger picture, you realize it fits perfectly. Your life is like that puzzle piece, part of a greater design that only God can see right now. So what does this mean for us in everyday life? It means that when you go through suffering, it's not wasted. When you face rejection, it's not the end. When you wait longer than you hoped, God is still preparing something for you. Maybe you've prayed for something and the answer was no. That hurts. But sometimes, God's no is actually His protection. Just like a parent who tells their child they can't play with fire not because they don't love them, but because they do. Maybe you're in a season of waiting right now. Waiting for healing, waiting for a breakthrough, waiting for something to change. Waiting can be hard, but remember David, he was anointed as king when he was young, but he had to wait years before sitting on the throne. That waiting wasn't wasted. God was shaping his character, preparing him for the calling. And when life feels out of control, Romans 8:28 whispers, God is in control, even when you are not. You may not understand the why, but you can trust the who. Think about the stories we find in the Bible. Joseph, betrayed but later exalted. Job, who lost everything but found God's presence in the storm. Jesus, whose death on the cross looked like defeat, but became the greatest victory of all time. And it's not just in the Bible. Even today, people discover that their deepest pain becomes the source of their greatest ministry. Someone loses their job, only to step into an opportunity that changes their life. Someone goes through heartbreak, only to discover a deeper, truer love. Someone suffers, but later becomes a voice of encouragement to others, walking through the same valley. That's Romans 8:28 at work. So let me encourage you today. No matter what you're facing, hold on to this truth. God is working. You may not see it now. You may not understand it. But one day, you will look back and say, yes, God was faithful. He was working all along. Romans 8 begins with no condemnation and ends with no separation. And right in the middle, it promises all things work together for good. That is the victory we have in Christ. So keep trusting, keep loving Him, keep walking in faith. Because the story isn't over yet. God is still writing it.